Welcome to Fear Coded, a podcast where we take a single entry in the vast ocean of horror media and discuss just how queer horror can be. And as we continue to dive deep into Lost at Sea-tember, we find ourselves swallowed whole in the 2023 novel Whalefall, written by Daniel Kraus. I'm David.
I'm Marilee.
And I'm Tyler.
Now, before we double-check our diving gear, I want to check in with my co-hosts to see how things are going for them. In a landscape of horrors that our real world has to offer, what is making y'all scared, or what is making you feel prepared?
Gain, I'm feeling prepared today.
Woo! Let's go.
Wow, Tyler. Right out of the gate, what's making you feel prepared?
I have been invited to do an outdoor physical activity, and I think I'm actually going to do it.
Wow.
Oh my god.
Okay. Inviting people to activities, not a strong prepared start on this podcast in our history. Would you mind telling Marilee and I a little bit about the activity?
Yeah.
So, we've all talked about how I am free from the shackles of Florida and I am dancing through the cornfields of the Midwest.
Don't dance through cornfields. The corn will cut your eyeball.
I'm wearing goggles through the cornfields of the Midwest.
That's fine. Then
Okay,
dance away.
Yeah, there we go.
And I have been invited to do an outdoor activity that I've never done before, like frisbee golf.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, okay.
And I've never done that. It was explained to me that it was kind of like chill hiking or something to that effect. And I'm like, you know what? That actually sounds fun.
You've never done frisbee golf before. This is truly new for you.
Exactly. Yeah, I've can't even recall the last time I tossed a frisbee. I certainly have never played golf that wasn't miniature.
Did you not date stoners in college? Like, what's the deal?
No, I did not.
Okay.
But I did not do frisbee golf. I saw some people play frisbee golf on the quad at Florida Gulf Coast University. Shout out, Go Eagles.
Okay.
And yeah, that's it. But the weather here it's starting to turn pleasant. I think I talked about this before, but we're pretty staunchly in false fall. You know, it's nice and cool in the morning, and then about noon rolls around and it starts to get into the upper 70s, 80s. But for me, coming from a place where I just check the temperature and it's 85, feels like 90 back in Florida where I used to live, I'm like, fuck it, man. I should go enjoy, like, pleasant weather. Even if it's not, like, cold out, I should still just, like, go out. Plus, I can, like, be social and, like, get some vitamin C, and humans were just more complicated plants. So more sunlight is good. So yeah, I'm actually considering going, and I'm feeling kind of prepared for that. I am feeling scared of actually having to follow through on my social plan, but that is for future Tyler to worry about. We're strictly in like planning period Tyler. So planning period Tyler is just like, yes, optimism, motivation, let's go.
Yeah, future Tyler, he might have won that Powerball. Yeah. So fuck him.
Exactly.
Yeah, fuck him.
Mm-hmm.
Marilee, have you messed around with frisbee golf? Have you played a round of frisbee golf?
No. I don't like frisbee or golf. So,
you know, I think the name is a bit of a misnomer. I think they should call it frisbee horseshoes because
I don't like horseshoes either, actually. So,
oh, I love horseshoes.
Oh well, I'm winning the Tyler vote on this one. So this is a gift for future Tyler. What you're essentially is you're trying to get close to a thing. You don't have to like pick a club or anything. Professional, like serious frisbee golf people do have different frisbees. Like they have their long range one, their short range one.
I'm so sorry. I cannot listen to you talk about serious frisbee golf with a straight face.
Oh well, then Marilee, are you not prepared for me to tell you that I was on a frisbee golf league? Yeah,
David.
Yeah, that's right. Sit there and deal with it. Was hobbyists, of course.
Of course.
But we did, of course, get close to the sun, much like Icarus, two professional like people. And I was like, okay, calm down, gang. This is a frisbee.
You're a delight. I every time we discover a new juicy, delicious morsel of David lore, I celebrate. So this is very fun for me. Thank you for that. However, what are we doing? No.
What are we doing? You know, it is going to be a chill day, Tyler. The reason I joked about dating a stoner is that I think that the ideal way to be is just a little inebriated during the frisbee golf experience because there's a little bit of downtime and it, I think, would elevate your social experience.
Yeah, take a little edible beforehand and have a nice time.
Interesting. I might do that.
If you're into it.
If I'm into it, yes. Well, David, are you into anything or are you afraid today?
Can I tell you, I'm not only prepared, but I brought a prop for my preparedness.
Oh my god, a prop. This is like show and tell, my favorite part of school.
I love show and tell.
We have been getting... We've lived in a foreign country where we don't exactly speak the language for 2 years, and we're now getting really serious about doing it. Not by signing up for classes or anything like that, in that we have bought props to help us learn the language around house. The first thing we brought, which I did not bring in because it is heavy, is a label maker. We have added labels on things all over the house to help us learn the words for uncommon items in Spanish. I know all the common ones. I don't need to like label the fucking forks, but I do need to label the water softener because it breaks a couple times and I have to tell the landlord, and I simply will never learn the word for water softener because why would I use it out of that context? But in addition to labeling things, we have made a commitment that based on our agenda for the week, we will be writing down words on this whiteboard so that we can practice them. So if we're going to the dentist, we will write the word floss on here because I don't know the word floss because why would I use it outside of the dentist? And I need to know when the dentist says, have you been flossing enough? I can say no instead of my usual, I don't know what this word is, so I'll just say yes. And also, you know I haven't been flossing enough. Your hands are in my mouth. But here we are. Now I can add floss to this whiteboard. And it's a nice whiteboard. I think the whiteboard is maybe my favorite invention of mankind. It's just so remarkable, don't you think?
Yeah, I love a whiteboard. This is so fun.
Yeah. Can I tell you what is on my whiteboard right now?
Please, I want to know.
I wrote, when we first moved in, Ohio is for lovers on the whiteboard.
Aww,
and I wrote lovers in cursive, which was kind of a minor miracle because who writes in cursive anymore?
Yeah.
And then beneath it, I wrote Mothman's boyfriends since May 2025 because the whole reason I wrote it is that Marshall had just gone to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, got pictures with Mothman, which I believe we shared on our fear-coded socials. And also has a sticker on the back of their car that says, Mothman is my boyfriend. So
perfect.
We've actually been in a relationship, a triad with Mothman since May.
Wow.
I have noted that you guys haven't gotten us any anniversary gifts, but that's okay.
Listen, it's just been a couple of months. You don't get anniversary gifts for your 3-month anniversary. That's not fair for us to have that as an expectation. You know that.
And I think in my defense, you registered for a cashmere sweater and I bought it and the Mothman ate it. So
he was looking pretty full one day.
Don't they eat fabric? Isn't that
they do. Yeah. Especially cashmere. Good one, David.
Yeah,
Marilee, do you also have a whiteboard? Are we a trio of whiteboard havers?
I don't have a whiteboard, if only because my brother has stolen the whiteboard that I purchased for D&D.
Rogue.
This fiend. How dare he?
We don't play D&D in person anymore, so I don't actually need it.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I had a whiteboard. I wasn't using it. He is, and I love that for him. But no, I don't have a whiteboard anymore.
And we just as a trio can agree that whiteboards are remarkable.
Oh, I love a whiteboard. I have bought several whiteboards in my life, and I've treasured every one of them.
Yeah,
as brief as our relationships end up being.
I like that you can mark on them and then mark on them again, which is what makes them remarkable.
I simply have to leave.
I feel as though I must escape by being consumed by a whale.
Goodbye, I'm walking into the ocean.
The ocean? Merrily, we're not there yet. First, you have to tell us if you are feeling scared or prepared.
Oh, that's right. I forgot I hadn't gone yet. Sorry. I kept... We heat up something that simply can't hit.
I do
Much like
love
a frisbee.
that you both gave perfect transition into the episode. And I was like, absolutely not. We cannot transition.
Yeah.
The one time we actually come up with a good transition. It's spontaneous. It's beautiful. And then it's like, Marilee, you better be prepared.
Well, gosh, if I have to be prepared, then I guess that I am.
You are. Marilee, what sets you on stage with the two of us? Why are we all enjoying a prepared dinner this morning?
Well, a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that I hadn't been to Spirit Halloween yet, and guess what I did yesterday?
It's done. It's been done. How was your trip to Spirit Halloween?
The first of many. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I am going to go back. I am a frequent visitor of Spirit. It was really good. We went mostly just to look around because
this a dry run. I understand.
Exactly. I did buy items because I am, of course, a monster that cannot be controlled, and they had an incredibly soft pillow that was shaped like the Death Head moth, which is, I love those fuckers. I have wanted a Death Head moth tattoo for like 5 years at this point. I just simply haven't gotten it done yet. And it was so soft, and I simply couldn't resist. So I did buy that and a cool necklace and some scrunchies that I have in my hair right now. But it was great, especially because I am trying to build up a collection of like Halloween decorations for my house. And I saw a really good candidate for what my big purchase is going to be this year.
Okay. Can you share that, or are you going to wait till you purchase it?
I can share it. They have a very cool looking tombstone thing that has it looks like it's like a memorial that's like something, and it has like a little light in it that says like such and such was like a light in the world, and you'd think, oh, it's like a light that you can like have in your, no, it's a fucking fog machine. So like So like fog would be like coming out of this tombstone, and I think that it looks so fucking cool.
I love that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, right? And we also have like a big tree in the yard, so I was thinking maybe of like hanging like a spooky ghost from it, and there's a cool spooky ghost with color change eyes that I'm thinking about also. But
cool.
Last year I bought a bunch of like fake tombstones that were like the cardboard one, like the foam ones that you just stake into the ground, and they were up for like 4 days before they were all destroyed. So I'm looking for solider things, and I think that those would be really good options.
All right, so Marilee, you obviously are our Spirit Halloween expert, and Tyler, you have been to your share of Spirit Halloweens. Spirits Halloween? I don't know where the plural is.
I think it's Spirit Halloweens because the store itself is called Spirit Halloween.
Yes.
Now, famously, these can show up in retail spaces that have otherwise been abandoned.
That's correct.
Much to the humor of places that are like, this is no
the one I went to was a former Party City, actually.
Perfect, great.
Oh my gosh, irony.
Well, sort of, works for itself. So my question, though, really is, if you went into a different Spirit Halloween, how easy is it to be like, I know where things are? Or is it like...
Every store is set up differently. Like, there's a general idea. Pretty much every Spirit Halloween I have been in, when you first walk in on the right, is like a more traditional, like, Halloween stuff. Like, you will get, like, cool items for, like, Michael Myers and Jason and
like the standards,
like the Scream franchise, immediately right in when you get to the door, and then you can work your way around. But the location of the shopping register is going to be different, though you're always going to get the same kind of items around the shopping register. And like that kind of thing.
That's the worst part of going to a different grocery store. Like, if you've been going to the same Albertsons your entire life, and you go to the other Albertsons around town, and you go in and you're like, where the fuck is the deli? Like, why would you move the deli? You own these stores. Why is the deli somewhere else? I hate that. But maybe for you it is joyous, because then you get to experience all of the horror things you love in a different order. Yeah,
so not really. I like going to Spirit Halloweens because I like Halloween stuff. And at no Spirit Halloween have they ever had all of the things that I'm looking for. So, especially because I do like to go earlier in the season, because I like to like plan my Halloween stuff, right? By the time you go later in the season, stuff is going to start selling out. So the earlier you go, the less stuff has been put out. The later you go, the more things are gone because they're gone. So, like, you have to find a sweet spot where the shelves are stocked and not sold out yet.
Okay.
Would you say that listeners should go now when this episode comes out? Like, we're in late September?
You should go as soon as possible, frankly.
You should be listening to us while you're driving to Spirit Halloween.
Wow.
Actually, yes. But no, like, here's the thing. Like in our Terrifier episode, I simply cannot recommend going to a Halloween store on Halloween, because that motherfucker's going to be crazy. They're going to be sold out of stuff.
Yes.
The line is going to be out the fucking door. Go earlier. And again, I there's no shame in going more than once. I love going someplace, picking out the kinds of stuff that I want so that I know what I want next time, because their website, God love them, is bad. And what is available in the store is never going to be, like, you are not going to get the full Spirit Halloween experience on their website.
Yeah. Well, going in for something and not knowing whether or not it's there is very close to the topic at hand that we are here to discuss.
No, we had such good layups.
We had such good ones, David. We had such good ones.
This is fine. The main character is looking for something he can't find. It may as well be a sold-out Chucky costume. But we are here to talk about Whalefall, the novel by Daniel Kraus. Whalefall concerns California teen Jay Gardner, who has recently lost his father, Mitt, an icon in the California diving community, but a man with whom Jay had a very complicated relationship.
On a quest to recover his father's bones from the sea floor, Jay ends up swallowed by a massive sperm whale. With his finite oxygen supply, Jay has to remember everything he's ever learned to escape to safety.
Reviews on the novel describe it as both high-paced and a deep meditation on fathers and sons, which honestly, fair enough.
Yeah.
A film adaptation is expected in fall 2026 that I'm now very excited about. What are our experiences with the novel Whalefall?
Well, I know that this was a David recommendation because when we had I guess we hadn't just started the podcast because it's one of my Scared and Prepareds from the first season, but my friend, my best friend from Texas, Wyatt, was here visiting, and I said, I've started this horror podcast, and he goes, oh, you could cover this book I'm reading, Whalefall, and when he finished, he was like, don't cover it for your podcast, but it was too late. I had already purchased it and was reading it. And while, Wyatt, if you're listening, you were not particularly scared by this book, I am interested in our discussion about it because I found it very frightful. I thought that it was going to be a very good time for us to discuss. I had a great time reading it, and I knew I needed to talk about it. So if we couldn't talk about it, I was just going to send a message to Katie and Doug and invite myself onto Novel Gaming. Because I will also say, few books have I read that did not come from Katie's recommendation that felt like such a Katie read as Whalefall has felt. This is the most I've felt ahead of Katie. Unless, Katie, you're listening to this and your response is, David, I've already read this. In which case, like, well played. But I absolutely loved this. I couldn't wait to talk about it. I had a blast reading through a second time for our discussion this week.
Yeah, I had never heard of this book until you recommended it, David. So I'm just so glad that you did.
Yeah.
But like truly, this is a really like fun, engaging book. Not that the subject matter itself is fun because it's scary as shit in many sequences, and also like really like emotionally intense as well. So it is like, this is a novel, Mama. This is literary fiction. I think it's still very like a good read. There's some parts of it that I didn't care for, which we'll talk about during the episode, but I still found it to be like really enriching, and I think honestly it totally fits the brief for Fear Coded.
Absolutely. I, again, hadn't heard it before. Never would have, frankly, because as I was reading it, was shocked that nobody is talking about this book because I instantly needed to discuss it with everybody in my life. If you know me in real life, you have heard me talk about this whale book that I've read. Because it's been like 2 weeks and I'm just like insane about it. So I can't imagine anybody reading this and being like, hey, whale book. I'm on TikTok. I see a lot of horror book recs. The fact that this was not recommended to me 80 times over the summer is frankly horrendous. Everybody needs to get better. This is such a good book.
Well, you know, I've heard it compared to The Martian. So maybe people are thinking about it less in terms of horror and thinking about it more in terms of like a person is in like a really difficult, impossible situation. How are they going to escape it? Kind of genre.
Yes, I saw that on the horror lit subreddit that it got referred to like as a reference to The Martian. And like, I like The Martian. I think The Martian is a fine read. Surprisingly good film adaptation as well, considering how complicated the book was.
Yeah.
And I think in particular, some of the ways in which this narrative is told using some like pretty fucked up grammar choices, which I don't know if that caused a bump for either of you. I love when books do that, but you have to like really be confident to do that shit. To have a chapter with one word in it it's a roll of the dice. You know?
Yeah, that's true. I guess this is actually kind of like a good time to talk about it because we're going to talk more about the content of the book. Yeah. But yeah, like the way that the novel is written out is a little similar to like House of Leaves in that the formatting gets pretty weird in some instances, but it vibes with what is happening in the plot at that time. So like just like David just described, there's sequences where there's just like 4 chapters in a row where it's like 1 word, 2 words, or what have you. And it's like you're going through fast, and it's kind of mimicking what the protagonist is experiencing in that moment, or like the emotions that you should be experiencing in that moment. I love it when novels do this. It's so cool. I also know it's probably expensive for like book publishers to deal with, but truly it makes the writing stand out so much further and provides a lot of insight into our characters, what the author wants us to experience in this moment. I think that kind of thing is really cool. Like David said, also there's some interesting like grammar choices in here as well. I like that reading this book, I actually had to like really kind of focus on the writing, especially at the start, because I don't know about how you all felt about it, but there's times where it almost feels stream of conscious.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, this is actually really fascinating for me because I once again audiobooked it. I'm an audiobooker. This is just who I am as a person. It is more convenient for me to do that than any other form of reading. So my experience would be very different from yours because I didn't have like the pages flipping, but the narrator really, like, those kind of chapters were very driving, honestly, to hear.
I bet.
Yeah.
You know, it's fascinating because just little behind the curtain for the listeners. Anytime we pick a book, we're really cognitive about it. And as we've already shared on pod, Dracula, She Is a Comin'. And so we've got a pretty heavy book coming up soon for us. And so when we were deciding on this one of the questions was, well, how many pages is it? And I reported it and I was really close to being like, so it is this many pages. And then I stopped because I was like, no, this should be a joy of discovery. And I wanted to be like, but it's like half that long. The other thing that got brought up in our selection was, David, is this an MTV book?
Yeah.
What the fuck what? How does MTV have a publishing house?
So it is of course it's a subsidiary of Simon and Schuster. But it is an attempt to get more young people into different types of literature. And what I find the MTV Books brand of, again, Simon and Schuster, a very well-known publisher, what I find them to be doing is really highlighting some marginalized voices. And I actually want to give a shout out to MTV Books. I think that if you look through what they have published, it's actually some pretty remarkable and weird fucking shit. And I think that if you truly don't know what to read and you just want to look for a group of things, I think you could go worse than the MTV book list.
Honestly, I based on the strength of this novel alone, huge MTV book fan.
100p on that one,
Yeah.
Merrily. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, but it's not even a separate editorial board. It is truly just a brand. It is Simon and Schuster from start to finish.
That's so funny.
Well,
Speaking
start to
of things-
finish. Let's try that one again. David, leave this in.
Leave this in.
Speaking, you know what? I don't even know anymore. Hey guys, it's time for our themes.
Themes!
Okay, so our first theme for discussion today is...
Themes. We could do whales noises. Themes.
Oh my god.
Themes, the bones of our fathers. Our first theme is the bones of our fathers for people who don't speak whale. Literature and stories about children and the haunting memories of their fathers go back a long way. From Diogenes confronting Alexander the Great about the bones of his father as a way to show power that we are all equal in death, to how characters face the sins of their fathers to motivate their actions. As a symbol, the bones of the father represent the last link we have to where we came from. So, how did you all interpret Jay's motivation to recover the bones of his father myth?
All right, I want to start here because I really thought that I was cooking with gas on this theme. I was like, this is like a long-standing ocean theme. Like, this is everywhere. And then I went to Google it, and the only place that I've ever seen this referenced is in a video game based on the Fallen London web game, where one of the successes of the game is to find the bones of your father. I truly thought that was referencing something much, much greater outside of the just of course, it is in literature everywhere, blah, blah, blah. But I thought there was literally like a Greek person who was like, I want to go get the bones of my father. And it just simply is not there. And I had invented this whole thing from a video game. So
incredible.
I love and treasure that, actually. Thank you so much, David.
Yeah.
Can you also drop the name of that video game, because I really want to play it?
Yes, I certainly can. It is Sunless Sea by Fail Better Games.
Oh my god, that's so cool. I'm definitely going to check that out.
I actually really loved Fallen London. I played it for a little while. I never really understood what the fuck was happening or what it was doing. But I appreciated the audacity. So I do think that I might check out this other game based on the concept and by the same people.
Yeah.
David, I do think though that you are not wrong with this idea that like children seek out the remains of their parents or just like some memory or evidence of their parents to try and make peace with their connection to them.
Yeah.
So I think father and son, like father versus son dynamics, play a lot into literary theory. I think probably the golden child of, let me talk about father and son dynamics, is Freud. Sorry, David.
Yeah, we can't get away from him. Fucking
you can't escape this guy.
Yeah.
But I think it kind of is an interesting dynamic to consider, especially as we move like more and more into the modern world and the future becomes the modern and all that stuff. I think that these things change and our perspectives on father and son change over time. I think in the past we've really considered like father and son to be kind of like God and son. So there's like Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader is a great modern interpretation of that, because Darth Vader is a very larger than life god demon like entity when we first meet him, and then Luke Skywalker is this emblem of good. He's just an innocent farm boy. And then as time progresses and Luke learns more about his father, he becomes more like his father, and we see that in Return of the Jedi with him starting to dress in dark clothes to match with his father, but his father starts to return more to like, I want to regain connection with my son. And we have that in modern day. We also have like the idea that the son must conquer the father with Oedipus. So like it's kind of interesting to see very similar dynamics at play here, because I think in this story we really kind of get both. Like, you know, Jay is really trying to confront his father and make peace with his father at the same time. And that's what he's trying to do when he's looking for these bones is I want to have my cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And then like over time and the plot of the story progresses and we see that mindset kind of change, but I still think that it all plays into the mythos of the sea.
Yeah.
So David, I like super don't blame you for thinking like, oh, this must be a trope that has existed in literature forever, because we have very primal connections to bones, the bones of our family, and then the ocean, which we've talked so much about this month, and I love that we have, because I never thought about it. I think
You're from Florida. You haven't thought about the ocean?
No, I haven't thought about like the mythos of the ocean as like this universal connector between all of our different cultures and stuff. I haven't thought about that, Marilee.
I like every time Marilee goes to the beach, she just looks out at the horizon and is like, man, this fucking thing. And then just sits there and like munders the ocean.
Yeah, excuse me. I just went to the inland sea for my health. Like the Victorian tradition of women looking at the ocean, I guess. I'm woman enough to count for that.
Oh, Marilee with like a netted hat. I could just see it. It's incredible. I love this image.
Women always be pondering the water, so...
when I went into this book, I was expecting, because of the recommendation, for this to be totally like a scary whale. I get eaten by a whale and it's scary. The first third of the book is like Daddy Issues the novel.
Oh,
like,
no, not only is it Daddy Issues the novel, it's also Diving the Horror Story, which we will get into for sure.
Oh, yeah.
There is plenty of horror in the first third. That I want, but I kept being like, where's the whale?
No, there's so much of this. Here's the thing. Full disclosure, I read this in the airport, and I have never in my life wanted to have a physical copy of a book so bad, because I was in this airport and I could not like react, because I can't be a crazy person on the airplane. I'm not going to do that. But like I actually wrote myself little notes as the book was going, because I simply was like, I don't know how to deal with this.
Yeah.
And one of the first things... Okay, no, my absolute first note was, does it believe in therapy? Oh, very teenage boy. My second note is every story just men mourning their fathers.
Yeah.
And I maintain that because, like, again, Steven Spielberg is one of the most influential filmmakers of all time. And especially his early works, every single one of them is him trying to deal with his own fucking dad. And that is rippled throughout cinema. And I think that you can find somebody struggling with their relationship with their own father in most media in some way. So the idea of, like, this physical thing, his father's dead bones, is a great way to make the metaphor of this difficult, strained relationship into a tangible object. And I really enjoyed this theme, David. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, there'll be plenty of dad's bones to come.
Oh yeah, no, like the dad's bones keep popping up, which is weird because there are only like 206 of them.
Well, you know what else keeps on coming up this month? The ocean.
The ocean, because it is lost at Sea-tember. We got to talk about the sea.
So our second theme in that case is "and not a drop to drink." The oceans are vast and deep stretches of water, but the conflict in Whalefall and the horror that comes from it exists within a very specific and claustrophobic space. Jay's struggle for survival is recorded in graphic detail, with the body horror left to the mind's eye. How do the circumstances in the whale work for us? What does it mean to explore maritime horror in such a confined space?
So I think that there's this really, and it actually has happened all month long and will, spoiler alert, continue to happen next week. But there is this like really interesting paradox that of all the things that we could choose that are about the horrors of the ocean, all of these stories end up being a little claustrophobic. They all end up confined in some way. And I guess now that I'm saying it out loud and I think about it, it actually isn't that surprising because it is a salty sweet mixture that tastes better together. It is fun to think about in this vast world that we live in. You are stuck in this one place, and that in and of itself is horrifying, not to mention that there's a kraken, like not to mention that there is a little ghost girl, not to mention that William Dafoe is there. Like the added layer of this that you could escape if only you had a boat or some other way to get out of your confined space is so cool. And we get that with the whale.
Oh my god, yeah. The whale is, I think, our greatest example of that. Honestly, this whole thing made me think of a Shakespeare quote, "Oh God, I could be bounded in a nutshell and count myself a king in infinite space, were it not that I had bad dreams," which is from Hamlet. And I think it works well
Another
here.
story about men dealing with the ghost of their father, by the way.
Literal ghost in that case.
Yeah. And also a father trying to write through his son's death experience with Will Shakespeare himself. But that is beside the point. I love this irony that is so inherent to horrors set in the sea. It's like you said, David, the irony is that there is so much water everywhere and we should be able to escape because it's just infinite, but we can't. We're isolated on a haunted boat or on a rock or in a whale. And I think that itself is terrifying because you're trapped. That essentially means that you're trapped. And it is just pain and misery to try and leave. And again, this kind of goes all the way back. It's biblical in some way because we have Jonah and the whale and all that stuff. But the whale itself is also like Titanic in description. But the interior is a claustrophobic nightmare akin to Jean Jacket from Nope. So like our source of imprisonment is this whale, and I think it works so well because of those reasons. It is like a mythical creature. It is kind of godlike. It is kind of spiritual. And those associations with whales come up in this novel. So I think it totally fits in with the mythos of the sea that we've established thus far.
Absolutely. I think that this theme is actually very interesting on like two different points. Because again, like we talk about the claustrophobia of it all versus like the vastness of the ocean. But I think the thing that we have to really keep in mind about this theme, not necessarily for this book, is the ocean might be vast, but we are just tiny little people, right? And we cannot traverse the ocean. We are not whales.
That's right.
We are not. So like if we are trying to do something in the ocean, it is all around us and actively trying to kill us. So like the claustrophobia is inherent in all like sea stuff, because the idea is you are bound to this extremely small space because everything around you is incredibly hostile to you.
Yeah.
And so you have to make do with this space. And I think that like the thing is, I never really considered it until this conversation, but like there are two different like real fears present in the idea of being lost at sea: the claustrophobia angle and the thalassophobia angle, which is the fear of like open ocean. It's too big. And then combined with the fact that like the ship that you're on is too small for the amount of people that you have, it's just like a really interesting push and pull. And I love that we've highlighted that here. The other thing I'd really love to talk about for this theme in particular is when, you know, in the description of it, you talk about the body horror of it all. And I was expecting body horror because you're swallowed by a fucking whale, right? I was not expecting the body horror present in what is going on with Jay and like how the novel describes what's happened to him in like the brutality of it all. I wasn't expecting for some reason, and I kept being surprised by it. And I thought that was really an interesting wrinkle, because the idea of being in the whale is a horrifying body nightmare, right? But like what's happening to Jay is a whole other separate body nightmare. We've got two body nightmares fighting it out.
Yeah. Fight.
I love it when the themes fight.
Let them fight. Our third and final theme for today's episode is Sleepers Arise. Throughout the novel, we are reminded of Mitt's frequent refrain, Sleepers Arise, which comes back as the final words of the novel. Whether reconsidering past information in a new way or allowing ourselves to change our perspective, the nature of waking or being awoken impacts Jay and us as the reader. What does waking have to do with this story and how we navigated through it?
Yeah.
I think that this is a really interesting theme, so thank you for bringing this up, David, because you wrote these notes. I feel like the words specifically used here, Sleepers Arise, is the thing that tells us the whole truth. Because Jay, like, by the end of this whole thing, Jay is a child going into the water, and he is an adult when he leaves the whale. And a lot of that has to do with his journey, with his relationship with his father, the journey with the whale, which kind of is his father, if not literally is his father. There's quite a bit happening here, and I think Sleepers is referring to Jay pre-whale, Arise is referring to Jay post-whale, and it's also so it's like describing Jay's journey. I think it also is just kind of like a good like motto for Jay to have as he's gonna go forward past this. So I think it's like this particular sentence is really interesting.
Yeah. I will speak more about Sleepers Arise as we continue to go through our conversation, but I think one of the other ways that I found this theme to be so resonant with the book was that the entire concept of a whale fall is the idea that at the end of a whale's life, it goes down to the ocean floor and its decaying body creates other life. And it is the notion that the sleeper, the dead whale, then causes life to erupt or arise. And it is this nature of the cyclical part of our world that when the natural world is in balance, it keeps that balance correctly, but there are efforts and there are problems that we as humans are creating, and there is a lot of ecology in this book. That might come as a little surprise when you were like, oh, a father-son complex, and there's a horror of being eaten by a whale. There's also a little bit of a reminder that there is a delicate ecosystem that we have the capacity to utterly break, and gets broken in Jay's story with the sacrifice of the whale. And so that the whale is not able to complete its whale fall. The whale is not able to Sleepers Arise. And in lieu of that, we get Jay's opportunity to be a better man.
I love that.
If anything, that whale's whale fall is Jay's escape.
Yeah. Though, again, like, there is a little bit of hope for the whale getting a whale fall. Like, at the very end, like Jay talks about like what people do with beached whales, and so he also mentioned that he hopes his whale gets his whale fall. And I do think that like you can hope and like headcanon that this whale got its whale fall, but I love the idea that Jay is the whale fall. I think that's really fun, and I hadn't considered that.
Yeah. Well, fun. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about horror. So I think we pretty much spoiled this one earlier when we were talking about the book. But, obviously we asked one of two questions here at the start of this section on every media that we consider for the podcast. And that first question is it horror? While reading this, were you scared, exhilarated? Does this belong as a horror entry for us to consider on the podcast?
So again, a little bit of a spoiler from earlier, but I did read this on a fucking airplane. And maybe the fact that I was having to experience the horrors of airport and all that airline travel these days entails might have colored my experience. But yeah, this is horror, baby. Horror, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the acidic pits and crunchy muscles of the stomachs were enough to leave me scared.
Yeah. I think the author Kraus does a great job describing things.
Yes.
It's kind of incredible to me because we used the words body horror earlier. There's absolutely body horror in this, but I just didn't consider it because when I think body horror, I think like hooks going through flesh a la Hellraiser. Or I think like craggy legs because of the slight misuse of the substance. And yet this is body horror. I just am doing it in my mind's eye, which is almost always going to be more powerful than anything I can see visually. And so I obviously was experiencing that because it is described in such great detail that I can envision everything that's going on. I do think that there are a couple of times, and maybe we'll bump into this, especially in the last third of the novel, when I do start to lose tenets of what's real and what's not real. So the first time that our boy Jay is like, "Oh, I've been cut by the suckers of this squid, and I'm bleeding out on my neck." I was like, "Are you though?" Because like, what's happening, my man? Like, you should take care of that. And then, of course, it becomes a conflict that he must resolve. And so every once in a while in the novel, they describe something really horrific, and I would just wonder, like, but is this happening, or is this happening in Jay's mind? And those are both real experiences, but they're different real experiences.
That's really interesting because I do think that like towards the end of the novel there's a lot of shit going on that like Jay becomes a very unreliable narrator because of all of the stuff that he's experienced, as well as like the constant threat of nitrogen narcosis and like head trauma and like all of this other stuff that's going on for him. But I never considered that the injuries that he was getting were not real because of the way that they were described.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, it was just like, obviously he's been gored by the fucking squid and like has like the scratches, like he's talking about it like that, David. I never considered.
No, then I'm really excited to get to it because I think some of the things that you all were like, is this happening? I was like, oh, this is definitely happening. Like anytime there was dialogue from the whale, I was like, this is actually happening.
No, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about how as he's being like brought out of the whale, he sees millions of whales all around him, some flying in the sky. Like that's more what I was talking about.
No, that happened too. I'm willing to believe the unbelievable, but I for some reason I was like, he's not really scratched.
Well, listen, that's fascinating, and I can't wait to get to it. But you know what else is fascinating? This novel and our ability to interpret queerness within it, because again, the action in the novel is this young man is eaten by a whale, and he interacts with no other people besides the whale. But, like, it's a very internal novel. We get lots of, like, flashbacks. We get lots of like, Jay talking to his father, the whale, maybe. So, like, you can get... There's a lot of conversation. And I think that there's a lot of meat on this bone for us to discuss this novel in terms of queer theory. So I have to ask, is Whalefall queer?
I think there's a lot of queerness in this book. I don't know that I necessarily clocked it as much my first read, but my second read, which was just for podcast, I was like, oh, wow, this is a smorgasbord for us to discuss. Yeah. And I am excited to get into it.
I'm thrilled to get into it. I think there's a lot here for us.
Yeah, like, I think Mitt's manifestation in the whale, asking Jay questions, some of them have to do with Jay's dating life. I think those are really like such important moments because they not only indicate like, oh, Jay is like kind of queer, and but he just doesn't have time for that, which is very understandable.
Yeah, he's 17, his dad's dead, he's living away from home, he's suppressed napping all the time. This kid's busy. But I do think that, like, there's a lot of stuff to explore with Jay and his relationship to queerness, because, like, he very much hasn't dated, but he seems open to dating people of different genders. And I think that he's also, his relationship to masculinity is kind of like the crux of this novel, and that is so fun to explore.
Yes. So I'm really glad you brought this up, Marilee, because to me, this novel reads very well as a trans allegory.
Yeah, I think so too. Or it's definitely a kid who hasn't figured himself out yet, who has to deal with the weight of this incredible, like, amount of toxic masculinity in his life. And where he ends up after this, we have no idea. But, like, I think even if he does end up being a cis male, which we have no way of knowing, like, the fact that he is exploring themes of gender in this way makes it a queer narrative to me.
Yes.
And
yeah, I think there's a lot of fun to be had in our discussion, so I won't belabor too much of it, but one of the quotes I pulled for this section was in Jay's internal monologue, him saying he's never felt more male, more destructive, and more like Mitt Gardner. And there's so much that Jay does to ascribe the bad parts of masculinity to his father, and the good parts of his identity, which share both feminine and masculine traits, to himself. And so as we talk about fathers and sons, and as I hope we talk about Mitt Gardner, I am really excited to get into who this man actually was and who Jay told us he was for damn near 90% of this novel.
I love that. Yeah.
Well then, are we ready to jump into a beat by beat of the 2023 novel Whalefall?
Let's dive in.
Nice.
I couldn't be more excited to put on diving gear, a sentence I'd never thought I was going to say.
Wow. Well, neoprene yourself away, Marilee. The story begins with Jay Gardner preparing to dive in Monterey Bay, the site where 1 year ago his father, experiencing progressive illness, died by suicide. Mitt was beloved by his community, and Jay has become a pariah for being estranged from his father during his sickness. Jay's dive is to recover his father's remains and clear his name. The entrance to the dive has to be more covert because the U.S. Coast Guard is present for some reason, but Jay makes his way into the water and begins his dive and remembers the years since he ran away from home and the day he learned about his father's death.
So first of all, like, the depth of detail that goes into, like, from the start, the amount of knowledge that we get from Jay, from Mitt about diving.
Yes, so much, which I need, because I don't have.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I would say a large majority of readers who read this book are like us and just don't have, or has very light knowledge of diving stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I found this extremely helpful to understand, like, how things are supposed to work and what it means when they go wrong, because then things start going wrong later on, which increases the drama. But it also works because by learning more about diving, we learn more about Mitt. Mm-hmm. Because Jay has to think back to all of his knowledge about diving coming from Mitt. And so we learn so much about their dynamic as we learn so much about diving.
Absolutely.
I love all the tech specs. I think it's a fun thing to do as well in the beginning of any sort of novel. Mm-hmm. I think we need the tech specs. We don't need all of them, which is also good writing. To don't just give me the Chekhov's diving suit. I need to know other things. Just some of them end up being capital R really important, and some of them are just like a normal part of diving. Mm-hmm. I did really love it. It felt almost Sorkin-esque, the way that they were sort of stream of conscious out as he was sort of doing his mental preparation for the dive, which I think was a technique that Jay was using to stem his anxiety about A, diving, and B, confronting this whole thing.
Absolutely. That's a really great call out. Here's the thing. I actually know quite a bit about diving stuff, not because I've ever gone, but because, as we've mentioned a couple of times now, I like disasters. And you know what's a frequent disaster? Fucking people diving and dying in horrible, embarrassing ways in caves.
Don't dive in a cave. Don't dive in a cave. You don't know how you're going to get out.
Do not dive in a cave because you will fucking die.
Yes.
And so, because of that, I know, like, I have a pretty good foundational knowledge of, like, what you're supposed to be doing. And so as he talks about this dangerous dive that he's going to do and the ways that he's, like, going to, like, make it sneakier for himself because he wants to avoid the Coast Guard, or as Mitt called them, the dirty CGs, I was sitting there and I'm thinking about all of the, like, dive compilation of the people dying videos that I've seen in my life and going, no, this is such a bad idea. Like, I knew he was going to get swallowed by a whale, but even if I didn't, this would be such a fucking disaster. And there's this TikTok audio that goes, Dylan, no, Dylan. And that was constantly going through my mind every time I heard him doing the shadiest shit I've ever heard in my fucking life. So I know too much about cave diving disasters to be chill in this section, I fear. And so, like, most of the things that I wrote down in this first little bit were all like, I can't believe he's fucking doing this. What do you mean that I wrote down a specific one. If a diver is crafty, they might never know. And I wrote that down and then was like, no!
Well, I think also to the Mitt of it all is that one of the things that we learn through all these flashbacks is Mitt doesn't dive alone. He dives with his son, Jay.
Yeah.
Jay now has to dive alone, except he's not alone because his father is there. I also I didn't like it. It was, hard. But I enjoyed reading the scene of Jay learning about his father's death from their father's friend and mutual family friend Huey, who tells him about Mitt's passing, and then you get the line reading, Jay wasn't taught how to hug men, which I just added to my turquoise highlighted queer reading considerations for us to talk about. It's just more of the masculinity of it all.
Absolutely. And my dad died a couple years ago, and you never really think about how you're gonna learn that has happened. And I felt like the way that this was described, I felt was, like, really honest in its emotional impact.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Jay's search in the early dive is mostly in vain, taking him to the cliff of the Monterey Canyon. To Jay, it is worth the risk to descend on the slope of the cliff to find his father's remains. Instead, he finds himself in the bioluminescent lights of a giant squid called Architeuthis.
Wow, well done, Tyler. I want the audience to know that I put that in parentheses because I was like, I'm not going to make Tyler say this. It's too close to French. But you know what? He went up, he saw the ball on that tee, and he knocked it out of the park, gang.
Yeah,
because it was Latin, not French.
That's right. Well, okay.
Anyway, suddenly there's something else as a loud tack stuns him, and Jay finds himself tumbling into an abyss away from the slope of the cliff and towards an immense fucking sperm whale.
Yeah, okay. I loved every single part of all this. I love the giant squid. I love how he's like, why the fuck is there a giant squid here? And then him being like, here's my quick, I do like anytime he has a memory, we get like a little flashback into like why this memory exists. It's cute. It's very Slumdog Millionaire, but it's adorable. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, right. So if a squid's up this high, it's like deranged. And I was like, oh, great. The horrors have begun. A deranged
as
squid.
If they hadn't already happened for me.
That's right. The seaweed scene that we skipped over in the synopsis, but the him being like, I shouldn't be in the seaweed, and then his like foot gets stuck in the seaweed, and I was like, what the fuck, dude?
Was that the kelp forest?
Yeah, the kelp forest. That's what it was. Not seaweed, kelp.
For any marine biologists out there, we are aware that kelp is a living organism different from seaweed.
That's true.
Just making that clear.
That's true.
But yeah, also that's a kind of like a great transition into my point that I wanted to make about this section, which is that there are some really wonderful descriptions of the environment before the Architeuthis giant squid shows up. I kind of feel, and I think that this is actually a common trope when it comes to the ocean or just water in general. The ocean is a very liminal space, right? Like that's our $50 word that's in horror nowadays is liminal. But I think it is true because, this is an area that is like reality, but it's different. Mm-hmm. The rules here operate differently. Mm-hmm. There are creatures here that cannot survive in the world outside of their own. And the fact that we are here and we can survive in this hostile space, even for a little while, is kind of a modern miracle of science, And for Jay to intrude in that space, because that definitely is more of the feel. It's an intrusion as opposed to he is being welcomed. He sees that there is this road of sea stars that are leading to the cliffside. Then there is just the suddenly bright lights everywhere, and it's the bioluminescence coming off of this giant squid, and it's just all so alien.
Yeah.
These are things that cannot happen in our normal human world on the surface, but can exist in a place where maybe the rules don't apply. And so if Jay cannot conquer his connection with his father on the surface, perhaps he can only do it in the sea.
Yeah, where they were meant to be.
Where they were meant to be.
I love that. What a really beautiful reading. I thought that this section was rad. Again, like the way that the descriptions of the underwater environment really rules, especially because there's a little bit where Jay talks about how the ocean grows humans. I thought was so interesting and cool. And also body horror out the wazoo again. We thought that was really great. There's also a little bit, the reason why Jay goes to the cliff is because he's following a trail of stars, of sea stars, which, as it turns out, I've never read the Cannery Row novel that they're constantly talking about throughout. And so I didn't recognize that following the sea stars was a thing from that. And so he talks about how, even if he doesn't find the bones, he knows that his mom and maybe his sisters are going to be really touched by this gesture that he's doing. And I thought that was really such a beautiful, thing to include, and also a great way to put himself in huge and horrifying danger.
Yeah.
Especially because he's talking about nitrogen narcosis, and then this bioluminescence happens, and he's like, oh, I've made a horrible mistake. And then he's like, oh wait, it's actually so much worse because it's this fucking giant squid.
Yeah.
And then when the whale pops up, there's this moment where between Jay and the whale, and he talks about how he looks in the whale's eyes and recognizes that this is another mammal with a soul. And I was so confused because this whale is going to eat this teenage diver, right? So why are they making the whale so sympathetic to us in this moment? Obviously that it becomes a really different kind of narrative, but I was struck by at the first, but I was like, isn't this the bad guy? What are we doing? And I thought that was really fun.
I also love that in these sequences, first when he sees the squid and then when he sees the whale, he's like, I'm going to go back up to the top, and even though I didn't find my dad, I have cool stories to tell. My image is saved. I, Jay Gardner, saw a whale. And I was like, yes, he's a teenager. This is...
Oh, yeah.
This is adolescence.
Very teenage boy.
Yeah, it's great.
And he kept talking about, the dive shop bros. And I think that if he had... This is my conspiracy theory, but of the narrative, but it feels almost like if he hadn't had that hubris centering himself, that maybe things would have ended up differently. But because he was thinking about it as a cool story, then the narrative punishes him by getting swallowed by this fucking whale.
Right. Well, and if this is a trans allegory, which is, the author has not talked about that. The author is not trans. But that would be missing the egg crack moment, and getting swallowed by the whale is the egg crack for Jay.
Yeah, I love that.
I think it also works too because part of the struggle and the crisis that Jay is experiencing is also that people snub him and spit on his shoes and stuff. So those dive bros that Mary Lee talked about, they're not just oh cool whale. They're hey dude, you fucking suck.
Yeah,
they spit on his shoes.
So
yeah, I get
alone.
that Jay would be fuck, I saw a squid and a whale.
Yeah.
This is just like that movie, The Squid and the Whale.
Oh my
I'm gonna go tell everybody about it.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think I'm actually very fascinated by what you said there, Marilee, about why is the book making us feel sympathetic towards the whale? Mm-hmm. I never thought that, even before we got into the whole Mitt is the whale thing, which we will explain shortly, or try to explain. I was just oh, it's a whale, and therefore it is this big majestic creature. But because it's a big majestic creature, it's also kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
So I viewed it as more of that respectful awe.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
And that's exactly what it is.
But I think I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I think to that point, that actually is what's so important, because we come to discover we are intended, or Jay sees Mitt in that same way.
Mm-hmm.
That there is a sort of respectful awe that is extended to him, that like when you get past the antagonism that Jay has, rightfully so, I would feel, towards Mitt, I think that is also a big part of how Jay feels about Mitt. Mitt is this larger than life character who is very godlike in a way, because he is so powerful and like aggressive, and in that same sense the whale is powerful and aggressive, but it also is a whale, and it's just being a whale. So Mitt is almost just being Mitt in a way. I think that view of Mitt changes over time, but I think from where we are kind of starting from, I think that is a good like synchronicity there.
Yeah, God, we're cooking with gas. This is great.
We really are. Tell us more about this whale, Marilee.
Yeah. So as the whale makes the giant squid its dinner, Jay gets pulled along into the whale's suction. Jay attempts to save himself, but is slowly pushed down the whale's throat and into its stomach. The stomach grips Jay's every movement as he finds the squid has latched its sharp sucker onto his neck, cutting him. The whale stomach finally ends the squid's life. Jay gives up, intending to sleep, as he has every moment he could since he ran away from home. But a voice rings in his ears, a voice he assigns to the whale.
Okay, so the swallowing is a lot, because we have gone, this is the introduction of the claustrophobia. We have gone from the great big ocean, even though like my boy couldn't see in front of his like fist because he didn't bring his flashlight, he didn't bring his gloves, like least prepared diver ever. But
don't say that, there have been way worse.
But now it's happening, and this is where it becomes an intense flurry of action, because he's grabbing into like the places where teeth should be, because he has like a handhold on like a gum socket, which I was also like, ugh. And I don't get grossed out by things, but the idea of like a decayed tooth left a little space for you, like a human hand to hold on to, was so like icky and kind of cool. And then he's like on a tongue, and that the squid is like grabbing this bag that he brought for the bones down with him. The whole thing is so frenetic, and then he's down. Then he's down and in it, but the horrors have not stopped, because then he's being attacked by the squid.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah. It truly was just like one thing after another in this sequence.
Just having a
which
bad
is great,
day.
because that's what you want in like a novel where the protagonist is trying to solve like one singular crisis, is just like, oh, things just keep piling on.
Yeah, it's perfect. In the themes, again, we mentioned this book really gets into the body horror, and that starts here. Besides the little bit that we talked about earlier. Jay's body is just absolutely fucking wrecked by the end. And I was really surprised by how far they were willing to go, especially like right out of the gate. Like we are wrecking Jay's body in like the way that the whale's stomach is crushing him, with the squid, with all of it.
It all felt very Nope to me.
Yeah.
Specifically with the scene with and I talked about this earlier, with Jean Jacket abducting everyone, and then that shot on the inside where it's just everyone is squished and things are wrong, and there's decayed remnants of food still in there, which is horrifying, and everything's gooey, and it's just a nightmare. But it's worse because it's pitch black dark in there.
Yeah.
Well, except for Architeuthis.
But that happens like a little bit later. But yeah, like when we're first getting in here, just one horrible thing after another.
Yeah,
truly.
And then I've really got to say that like Jay just being like, fuck it, I'm gonna fucking give up. And the insight that we get here in the flashback of I'm gonna fucking give up is, ever since I ran away from home, ever since I ran away from Mitt, nothing's been waking me up. I only wake up to go to school, I do my assignments, and then I go right to bed. And our boy is in like a deep, dark, depressive state. There's no joy. There's no socialization. Even though he's living with his friends, we get none of that. It is just a place to sleep. And if we are going to read this as a queer awakening in any way, shape, or form, then I think we've got to talk about the idea that when you're not ready to come out, when you don't think it's safe for you, it can cause us to go into a depressive state and shut down in that way. And I think that for my reading of this book in a very queer way, it is a heroism at the end that Jay no longer wants to sleep.
Yeah. I love that. I genuinely love that. And just like
I love all of this queerness that we're finding in here within the whale.
I wish Daniel Kraus was queer.
Listen, we don't know that.
That's true. Daniel Kraus, come on the podcast. Tell me if I'm mispronouncing your last name. People say it two different ways. I chose one. All right. Well, Jay intends to ignore the warnings that he is getting from the whale voice, and he proceeds through the digestive tract of the whale, thinking that I'll just get out to the end. But in the second stomach, the whale's acid burns his exposed hands, and a giant squid's beak impales his hand. Jay's mind fills with the whale's voice, which knows his name and reminds him of the lessons he learned from Mitt, motivating him to return to the relative safety of the first stomach. The voice promises that everything he needs is here.
Listen, when Jay realized that the whale was also Mitt, I was like, oh yeah, of course, obviously. And then I took a beat and was like, hey, Marilee, what the fuck are we doing here? Because I was like truly shocked at my own fucking reaction. I had to like double check because that is an obviously insane sentence, but it was just like, it made total sense to me in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. This sequence is so nuts. I had kind of the same reaction you did, Marilee, where it's like, oh, the whale is his dad. The whale is his dad. But I'm like, Jay kind of has the exact same reaction, so we're all at the same point.
Yeah.
Like, it's great writing.
Yeah.
I think there's also some like really great synchronicity here about Whale Mitt as kind of like this advisor or navigator or guide. Because Jay is like, if we look at this through like a literary, which is what we do, we look at things through a literary, theoretical, queer lens. But let's look at this in terms of like the general sort of like, what is the great universal tropes and literary archetypes that we know. And one of those things is the journey into the underworld for our hero protagonist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly.
Jay, this totally qualifies as a journey into the underworld.
Oh, yeah.
Like we actually get like a vision of hell inside the acid pools of the stomach. I think that is probably the most horrifying, just from like what is a general like classic horror. And I think pools of acid where you could see victims still being digested and our hero's own body itself is being digested. There's a great line that Jay references from Moby Dick by way of Mitt, but also I think is just really good, is just this idea of eating him by his own light, which is describing how a character in Moby Dick ate whale flesh by the candle that was or a lantern that was lit with like
whale
paraffin
oil.
from a whale.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's it's so fucked up in a way, but I love that we have this 180 on it where Jay is the one that is being eaten by the whale's own light, which is the phosphorescence from Architeuthis.
Yeah.
God, I cannot believe I didn't clock this as like a Dante illusion, because he is crawling on his belly through hell. And that's awesome. The writing in this book is so fucking good.
Yeah.
And I just think that like the whale as a psychopomp is so cool. And I just think that this rules.
Could you describe what that is real quick? A psychopomp?
Yeah, absolutely. So a psychopomp is like, it's a figure from like classic like literature analysis of and it's a Greek word meaning literally like a guider of souls. You see like a psychopomp a lot of the time in different hell narratives, like for example in Dante's Inferno, where he is being guided through hell by Virgil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. I think it works so well, and I think it also works in terms of like Jay's own relationship, because when we start, Jay is like kind of in hell, or he's like in. If we wanted to ascribe Dante to this, it would be kind of like in a purgatory state when he's on land, where it's just, I'm lost, I don't know what to do. Let me go to the sea, which is kind of maybe like his transition point, and then we wind up in hell because it's a liminal space, and then we wind up in like the actual circles of hell. But here we have our psychopomp Mitt that is telling him, you have everything you need if you just go back to where you came from. And I think that's That is so genius, and I think it works so well. I think it also is kind of the horror of it all too, because like if you're Jay, you're 17 years old, you're going through like a psychological crisis, you're stuck inside of a whale now, and now the voice of your father is talking to you through the whale.
Yeah.
And the way it's all written out, where it is not Mitt speaking like Mitt, it is Mitt speaking like he is just a soul or a spirit, but he lacks the essence, or this is like truly just the essence of Mitt, but it is without all of the baggage associated with Mitt.
Yeah, well, and he's a lot more emotionally open too, which I thought was really interesting. And he says we a lot of the time because he is the whale and the whale is Mitt.
Yes, to the point that I think the inconsistency in how the sentence structure is made in the whale voice is about, this is an intelligent creature, but it is not a human. This is different intelligent language, not human language. And Marilee, I'm interested in how the audiobook did this, but during times when there would be dire warnings, what we would see from the whale voice would be, the whale voice is always in parentheticals, but when the whale voice was like, don't fucking go into the acid bath of my second stomach, you idiot, there would be like 6 parentheses to indicate a type of depth of the conversation. And I assume that in the performance, there was just more urgency in the reading.
Yeah, no, it was like a very urgent, like a little bit of a, whale Mitt never really shouted, but like there was like a volume and urgency, like that kind of thing. I'm obsessed with the multiple parentheses. That's so fun.
Yeah, I thought they were so good. I mean, truly and honestly, I can't say enough good things about how whale voice is expressed in this novel.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's really fantastic. This I really love this section when we're starting to like get like, we're going from like emergency mode to now we're shifting into like, I must trust the spirit of this whale. And then like, I just want to touch on this before we move on. Like, one more thing is that whales are kind of associated with death and vessels of the spirit and the soul. This is something that is specifically communicated by Mitt earlier in the novel, just like a little bit earlier when we're starting to become acquainted with the whale. But I think it also works too, because that is actually another sort of like universal, like almost Jungian archetype of what do we recognize in whales. And like there's like there's whales in like Japanese mythological history, especially like more recent folklore, which has to do with like ghostly whales that are there to like stop whalers from killing them. But there's also just this connection between them and like being harbingers of doom, or a passenger of the soul, or a vessel for the spirit. And so I think that it manifests here, and it's like, is it actually happening? Is magic real? Is it Jay's nitrogen narcosis, and this is playing off of memories that he's associated with Mitt? At the end of the day, I don't think it really matters. And actually, this is a great transition point, because we're going to start talking about that.
Yeah. But before we go into the next sequence, Tyler, I got to say, it's just not, there was no place to put it in the notes, but this is where we discover Beaky. And Beaky is sort of Jay's Wilson from Castaway. This is like his only friend.
Beaky, the way that the narrator in the audiobook talks about Beaky makes me so insane. We'll get to it in a minute.
Okay,
but
great. Okay, great.
Beaky is a wild thing, my guys.
Truly. I am. Okay, great. I'm glad you've got some extra stuff to bring in, because I was worried we wouldn't talk about Beaky. So as long as Beaky is coming, then I will wait. I will wait for Beaky.
Well, let's get into it, because it's Beaky time, baby.
It's Beaky time, baby.
Beaky. Jay is halfway through the oxygen in his tank. Desperately, and again ignoring the whale voice, he uses the squid beak, which he names Beaky, to stab at the whale's stomach. It's also a very vivid description of how he's pulling the squid beak off of the rapidly melting remains of the squid.
Yeah.
Foul.
Well, and like it's like stuck and embedded in his hand.
And it's stuck, yeah.
And like it gets embedded in his hand in the first chamber of the stomach. He goes back into the other chamber where like this other bit happens. He also like uses, when he pulls the fucking beak out of his hand, and he uses it to like slice the neoprene. Insane. It's all insane.
I love it.
It's all crazy. But Jay uses Beaky to stab at the whale's stomach, which leads the whale to do what whales naturally do in a scared space. They dive deeper. The pressure of the whale diving deeper will surely kill Jay. However, the dive is eventually halted when the whale starts to be attacked by orcas. Jay begs the whale voice to call the others and summon help from other sperm whales, but the whale voice resists at first. However, other sperms do come to the rescue after the whale does ask for help.
Yeah.
The whales form a star shape protecting our injured whale that Jay is stuck inside of and protect it as it resurfaces.
Wow, okay, there's a lot to go into here, from Beaky to the summoning of this all-female clan of sperms to protect him, to ask for help from your family. Where do we want to start on this this section?
Well, look, we started talking about Beaky. Do we have more stuff to discuss with Beaky?
Not yet, other
Not
than
yet,
the
okay,
fact
okay.
that, like, again, it's metal as hell to get a giant squid thing out of your own hand as it's impaled on your, like, palm, and then use it to save your own life from an injury the giant squid gave to you.
Yeah.
That's rad.
Well, and the novel does not mince words. It is like, oh, I feel, like, Jay feels the beak scrape against his, like, hand bones. And I was like, no, thank you, book. I do not need this.
Yeah, again, I cannot overstate the graphic nature of which Jay's injuries are described to you. It's insane.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
at one point he talks about how he's worried that his fingers are going to pop off because he's using his hand, and, like, the injury in his palm is, like, so severe that he's like, I gotta keep going, though, so if they pop off, I guess I'll just switch hands. Nuts.
Well, and the warning that Whale Voice gives to Jay is so, like, Mitt is a parasite on the whale, because the Whale Voice is saying, think what we will do. Like, I can't stop the nature. If you stab this stomach, we will dive. Think of what we will do. As Jay brings the beak down onto the stomach, the Whale Voice is pleading with him to just take a fucking breath, my man. And Jay won't, because he's impulsive.
Yeah, he's a teenage boy.
He's a teenage boy.
And he has got to grapple with this toxic masculinity in his life, including coaching the whale through calling his family for help. And, like, this all-female pod, and, like, Jay has constantly been talking about how he prefers the company of women. And he's got this several sisters and his mom that he's having a hard time communicating with, and he tells Mitt, the whale, that he's got to do it. And it's just, there's so much here for us to talk about as a queer reading, I swear to God.
Well, to start with, I'll say Jay gives advice to the Whale Voice that he will not take himself. We learn through flashbacks that Jay has refused the help of all the women in his life throughout the entire experience that we read through the novel, pretty much since he ran away from home. He will talk to his sisters, he will talk to his mother, but he will not heed them. His hatred of his father is too strong, and they are all connected to that. But as soon as the Whale Voice needs it, he's like, call for help. That's the right thing to do. It's giving, like, toxic mental health TikToker. Like,
okay, listen, way to put us all on blast about giving our friends advice that we do not follow.
Yeah.
Well,
fuck you, David.
Episode title: Fuck you, David.
Yeah, I love that Jay does that. I kind of want to ask you guys, like, I don't personally find it to be a super important question.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
But considering, like, the interiority of Jay and the whale and their relationship, because no matter what, it saves the day. But how much of this do you think is real versus a hallucination?
I think it's real.
You think that Mitt's spirit is within the whale, along with a bunch of other spirits?
Listen, it's real to Jay, and that's what matters. But also, he does tell the whale to go and call for help, and then help actually happens, and he could feel the other sperm whales come and defend this one sperm whale from this pod of orcas that are attacking it. So if you are looking for an actual factual, like, point where you can put it that this is a real thing that's happening, that is a pin you can push in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I read it as I do read it as textual, because I like experiencing stories that way. You can listen to our 3-hour I Saw the TV Glow, where I was like, this is all actually happening. There's no symbolism. This is all real. And but I read this as actually happening, but I guess I will a disciple of Jung, talk a little bit about Carl Rogers. Carl Rogers often in his training with students would say that when you're working with a client, they might be experiencing things that you aren't experiencing. They might be thinking about things that are only in their head, but that doesn't make them not real. That is part of their experience. And so I guess I was so in that as a Rogerian, not to toot my own horn, that I never fell to the siren's call of Sigmund Freud. But like what somebody is experiencing is their reality. And I am so in this book, especially because it is a fucking page turner, that I never even stopped and thought about this until I saw your question in the notes. Cause like I was too there to even split it apart, because it's so happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically where I'm coming from, right? Like, I feel like no matter what, it doesn't matter if this is real, if it's a hallucination or whatever, it's happening. And part of me is like, oh, well, maybe Jay is hallucinating this orca attack to begin with, and it's him trying to make it work with like his father, and now he's also trying to reconcile his relationship with the women in his life because he's having these memories that are in connection to the whale and the other whales around. And it's just like, and it feels almost like too convenient. But if this is really happening because we are in the ocean, which is a liminal space, maybe that shit's allowed to happen.
It's allowed to happen. I agree. I totally agree.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. This section had one of my favorite exchanges between Whale Voice and our boy Jay. And it is Jay asking Whale Voice, was it really worth it for me to hate you? And the whale responding, yes. And Jay going, why? And the whale responded, because you are still alive. And I was just like, damn, what the fuck? Because it is like there are many parents in the world who care about their children to a level, but just frankly don't have the fucking tools. And they will misuse tools that are in their arsenal in order to help them be successful and be happy. And I think all three of us have had parents who are on both sides of this shit, who did it the right way and did it like super the wrong way, and then did it sort of like this fucked up Mick Gardner way, which is like, I want what's best for you, but all I have in my tool belt is teaching you how to dive, which will actually not help you that much except for in this scenario. And I really loved this moment of inflection for the Jay character, and I think this is where his maturity arc really begins.
Absolutely. While we're talking about lines from the book, I also want to give a particular shout out to my least favorite line I've read maybe ever in my whole life. Because when the whale surfaces, it breaches, or like it jumps and like crashes back down, because that's the thing the sperm whales do. Which causes, of course, grievous bodily injury to the human person that is trapped inside the whale's stomach. Like, he gets severely injured here. And in the novel, it's described as a certain way, up to and including the phrase, he is certain his flesh has been hurled from his skeleton and now slurps, squid-like, down the gullet. Are you kidding me? Horrid.
It's all terrible. Because I was like, oh, he's breaching. Jay's about to get out. And the book is like, no. No, this is worse.
Oh, so beautiful. Yay. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, but on the interior.
Yeah. There's a lot of yay but to come.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot more to come.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. I love that so much.
You know what we love? When the whale talks. So Jay talks with the whale voice. Jay talks with the whale voice, and he is encouraged to try escaping the way that he came in. He uses Beaky to coax an entrance to the throat and a jellyfish's illumination to see footholds to climb. He makes his way back up into the mouth just as the whale surfaces for air. Through the whale, Jay can hear people on a tour boat outside. Jay manipulates the vocal folds in the whale to create a noise to draw attention from the people. But the whale opens its mouth to eat, and Jay is swallowed again.
Ugh. This is the first of the, like, we're saved! There are people! He's making this weird noise! He can hear them reacting to, like, what the fuck is this noise? And then the whale's like, ooh, gotta have some fish. Nom 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 nom. And he's, like, right back to square one.
Yeah. Worse than square one, because he breaks both of his fucking legs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my God. I forgot that he broke his fucking legs.
It's so bad, y'all. It's so bad.
This kid is fucking brutalized.
Yeah, this kid is, like, not to spoil too many more things, but I imagine he looks like that one fish from SpongeBob SquarePants that's just completely bandaged up in the hospital.
Yeah.
Has got like the oxygen mask on and everything.
This is the sequence that had the thing Marilee brought up in its queer is it queer discussion, which is the whale voice being like, I never asked you any questions. Like, are you dating a girl? Are you dating a boy?
That was Tyler, actually. Let's give him his flowers.
Tyler, my bad.
Yeah.
Or like, did you ever want a dog? Like, just this like very natural stuff. And this is there was a really good set of lines here. Also, again, the whole Mitt and Jay of it all of whale voice saying, "We're sorry we never asked questions. We wanted to know, but we're afraid." Jay asking of what, and Mitt or whale voice responding, "Answers to questions have weight." And I think there's a fear of parents to ask queer children questions, not out of fear of the response, but that the response has a very dynamic of changing what the relationship between a parent and a child is.
Mm-hmm. That's such a great reading, David.
I really love that. I think it actually connects back to this strange organ that the whale has not used since it was like a baby calf.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Jay uses to signal to people, hey, there's something not right with this whale.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just that it's dying, it's like there's something fucked up about this whale. You should look at it.
Yeah, so like we mentioned the vocal folds. In the novel, they talk about like they've heard from this whale scientist that they have this theory that whales could like communicate a little bit differently and like have vocal folds in their throat. The whale scientist speculates this is a thing that like baby calves would like use to communicate with their moms, but they end up like not using them. And so Jay uses this vocal fold to try and make a noise that no one has ever heard before, because this is an adult whale making a noise that a child whale could potentially make, but we have no record of. And it's actually really interesting, like science-wise, but it's a really great like problem solution inside the whale. How do you get attention when these people can't hear you? A teenager screaming in the back of a whale throat. You use the whale to make the noise.
And I love that too, because it is a connection that Mitt, as the whale, does not use.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is an intimate, vulnerable part of himself that he does not use because he doesn't want to communicate to other people. He only wants to dive. He only wants to dive with Jay. And he's teaching Jay all these things. And it's like, what does it mean for this to be like this vulnerable part of himself is the thing that is really going to be like the big helper for Jay at the end of the day? Like, what does that mean? I think it's kind of interesting, and it showcases that Mitt's vulnerability and kind of like his like childlike or effeminate side is just as valuable to Jay as it was to Mitt as a baby, like or like the whale as a baby.
Yeah,
right.
Because like the toxic masculinity of it all, like they talk about how like this is the first time like Jay has cried in years. This is the whale is making this return to childlike. This is a way of communicating that Mitt as the whale never used. Jay would have really been like responded to vulnerability and communication from his father, but Mitt couldn't access that, but he is now in the form of the whale accessing it for Jay. It's delicious.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in our final set of scenes, Jay has resigned his fate to be with the whale as it dies, to complete its whalefall, a death which creates the opportunity for so much other life in the ocean. But the whale voice commands him to live. A final gambit unfolds where Jay uses the debris in the whale's stomach and the lessons from his mother and sisters and father to rig an explosion. Jay is pulled from the whale's breached carcass by scientists, the very people who caused him to be covert at the beginning. He is seriously hurt, but will live, and realizes that he didn't find his dad's remains, but that he is his dad's remains.
Great book.
Great book. I found the ending to be very, very moving, very emotional. This sort of revelation at the end was really well sold to me, and it was the idea that we don't grow up to be our fathers. We grow up to be shaped either for good or for bad by them.
Mm-hmm.
And it shouldn't be our goal to emulate. It should be our goal to be something different. Even Whale Voice says, I want you to escape me. Not, and I think you can read that as like, I want you to get out of the whale, but I think it's also like, get away from being who I was, because I was limited. You don't have to be. And I think that Jay, after years of physical therapy, is going to have a better life.
And potentially also emotional therapy, which he's been scorning the whole time. I think he could really use.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I would not relish that client. Somebody came in and I was like, I was swallowed by a whale and had a huge epiphany. I would be like, this is beyond my practice. Thank you.
I'm going to refer you to a specialist.
Yeah.
Is there a whale swallowing specialist?
Yeah. Hold on. I know a guy. Hold on.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting that we find out what the dirty CGs, the Coast Guard, were looking at earlier when Jay went into the water, and it was a dead young sperm whale. And I think that is our metaphorical Jay of the past who died on that beach, because the Jay that we have now is so different from who he was. And he's an adult. Like, I think that this was his rite of passage, to leave behind like the kind of the immaturities that are associated with youth. And now it's like, I'm ready to confront what is ahead of me. And I think that's an example, not just of like, he is now an adult. It's also like positive masculinity in the 21st century, because I think we've seen Mitt, who's very representative of toxic masculinity that was present in like the 20th and early 21st century. And now, especially because we live in a time where men are really struggling to find good role models, like straight men are struggling to find good role models due to, God knows, capitalism, algorithms, you name it. This, I think, is a really good example, because it's in touch with their emotions. It's a willingness to confront what is difficult, what's scary, and to also be willing to be vulnerable. I think that showcases true strength. So I also found this to be a really, really strong ending.
Yeah. And like speaking of like the young Jay versus adult Jay of it all, like he's constantly talking about emerging from the whale as like a second birth. And like when he's talking with like the scientist who's like trying to ask him his name, he wonders for a moment if he's going to be able to speak or click. And I thought that was really cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've done, I think, justice in describing some of the high beats on this, but there is nothing like experiencing this novel that we could recreate. We needed this to steer our discussion, but I truly think that if we have enticed any of you, you really need to experience this book in one way or another.
Absolutely. And it's a very short read.
Yeah.
Before we...
Yeah. But not even saying that like it's a short read, even if it were a long book, like it's still so fucking well written and like really engaging. If this book were twice as long, I would be thrilled. I would still be gripped. I don't think it would be as good if it were twice as long, but nevertheless, like I think it's kind of perfectly sized. It's going to be a quick read because you will just feel so compelled by what you read. And then also there's a couple chapters where it's like one word on a page.
Yeah. Before we move on, can we talk about Beaky for a second?
Oh, that's right. This is the loss of Beaky here. It's pretty devastating.
Yeah.
Poor Beaky.
Yeah, so like Jay loses Beaky inside the whale's abdomen after he cuts his way out of the stomach when he's trying to create the bomb that will get him out. Don't worry about that sentence. We're not talking about it. I want to talk about something that happens a little bit before then.
Okay.
I don't know. Neither of you guys mentioned this, so I feel like it has to do with the audiobook narrator, who again did an incredible job. But there is a moment in this section that I literally cannot stop thinking about. It is one of the most disturbing parts of the novel to me in a really insane way, because at one point, right when like Jay is like again going to try and cut his way through the stomach wall into the abdomen, he talks about how he's really glad that Mitt never allowed him to have a diving knife because he's got Beaky and that's a million times better. And then he says no diving knife would like fit in his hand the way that Beaky does, and it's such an insane line delivery. I cannot stop thinking about it.
Yeah,
I remember that line actually, Marilee, because even without like an audiobook narrator, that stuck out to me.
Yeah, it's insane.
because it literally stuck in his hand, but it had like
Yeah.
this double. I remember the line. I don't know that it particularly resonated with me, so maybe the performance did add a little zhuzh to it. But yeah, I mean, it was hard not to keep reading at that point in time in the book too. I think is all the problem is I was almost too stressed to sit and think about things. That I wanted to know what happened because he's making a bomb.
For real. Yeah. Again, like it's a thing that like since finishing the book, I just keep hearing him talk about like, and if his fingers pop off, he'll just put Beaky in the stump and keep going. But like his delivery on like nothing fits his hand like Beaky chills.
Yeah.
I actually remember that line because of I was also going through what David was going through, which was just like, I'm so intense. I have to see what's going to happen. So I'm like flipping through pages and reading as fast as I can go. But I felt like that mentality was being mimicked in Jay. So when I read that line, it was just like, oh man, Jay is like, he's like this close to just fucking snapping and just thinking that he is like the squid now, like, or he's part of some sort of nautical new thing with his dad. Like, I thought that was really cool, and it played into this notion of like, Jay is changing, and the whale has changed him. So overall, how did we feel about Whalefall in terms of horror or queerness after our conversation? And do you have any other final thoughts for our episode?
The only thing that I didn't really have a place to talk about was that we get, especially in times when Jay has been knocked out, which are not zero. Anytime our boys struggling with consciousness, we get a lot of fast chapters. And one of them is a sequence where he remembers Mitt in a much different way. Or maybe this is telepathic from his whale dad. Who's to say? Because this is the 0 PSI chapters. Like, there's no oxygen left. It's all blood and nothing going into his lungs. So maybe he's imagining some of this, but he has different memories of his father. And what this final section did was it showed me that there is a little bit of a discongruence between Mitt the villain, who we have been exposed to for 90% of the book, and maybe who Mitt actually was. And that can be true of sociopaths, and there are ways that people mask things, and I don't mean to disagree with Jay's reading of this, but his hatred of his father almost seemed like it was a hatred of self more than a hatred of Mitt. And when I really thought about this from a queer perspective, it almost felt more like maybe Mitt didn't do all the right things, and he certainly was a jerk. But maybe Mitt wasn't as bad as Jay was concocting him to be in the 2 years since he left home. And maybe there really was more to this. And maybe it was this awakening that Jay needed, not just to become a man, but to finally understand who his father was in the end.
Absolutely. And like there's a bit in this chapter, this area, like that area that you're talking about where he remembers like looking at his dad when he was a baby, like a month old. And like, that was a really moving chapter for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause those chapters are just years, right? That's not the PSI. They're just giving you date stamps and like, he's born. We watch Jay get born. It's fucking wild. All while Tyler and I are like, what happened to the fucking explosion?
Enough about the fucking intro, whatever introspection. Enough of that. I want to see a whale explode. Should have been the whale burst that happened on the beach sometimes.
But I think that to me, when I think about the queerness of this book, that it was just so effusive. It's shit like that I think is resonant for queer readers to experience. Because I think that to be queer, you don't have to have a complicated relationship with your parents, but
it helps.
It is in the starter pack. So if you decided not to use it, that was your choice. So that really resonated for me. I didn't have that experience with my father, but I certainly could read and find empathy to many stories I've heard from other queer people who did have that experience, where they had made a version that was a little bit easier to deal with, and when they really started to deconstruct it, that was part of their grieving and reconciliation process. Certainly things that were true, certainly things that were grounded, but some other things that had almost become urban legend.
I love that.
So I'm going to now jump in and tell you that I had the reverse experience with Jay. Okay. So I love the queerness in this novel.
Mhm.
I really do, and I feel like there are moments where Mitt's spirit, or Mitt the whale, is acting like the father that I think Mitt always wanted to be, but did not have the capacity
Right.
to do. And I think those pages that you're referring to, David, where it's just years and it's like Mitt is born, and then it's multiple years after that where nothing happens until you get to Jay, and then it's like Jay is born, and now the world makes sense, and Mitt still feels bad, but is like, I'm going to teach you in the way that I can so that you could be a better person than me, right? I think that's a really good story, but I think that it still kind of wraps up a little too easily for me. Just because David, I totally agree with you. I think that there are moments in this book where Mitt, the person that we see, is different based off of what Jay's emotional attachment is to that memory. And I think that's great. That's wonderful, unreliable narrator stuff. But I do think that there were enough moments in here where it felt objectively like Mitt was really kind of an abusive person. Like, there's a sequence, we didn't talk about this at all, but there's a scene, and I think it's Jay's last night seeing Mitt before Jay runs away from home.
Yeah, this is their last memory in person with each other.
Mitt has lost his job again. He's about to lose the boat that means so much to him because of the job that he's just lost. And he's really drunk, which is a thing that Jay is used to. But now Mitt is also going through some sort of emotional crisis where he's got a knife out and he's like actually cutting blood, like marks into his face and drawing blood. And he's like, okay, Jay, stand still. I'm going to do this to you too. And in that moment, I was just like, I don't think if I were Jay, I don't think I could ever recover from my father threatening to hurt me with a knife, no matter what new thing I have gone through. No matter if I've been put into a fucking whale, my father still tried to pull a knife on me. And I would have difficulty with that. And so I think that things wrap up too nicely. I actually did read The Sleepers Arise as Jay accepting more of the abuse that Jay pushed onto him, and is now taking it and owning it, and that does not work for me personally.
Okay.
Like, the problems that I have with the book, I think, are a personal connection to me because I did not have a great relationship with my dad. I thought my dad was pretty good, and like he did his best when I was in high school, like up until I graduated from high school. And then after I graduated from high school, my mother told me all of this stuff about him, and I'm just like, you know what? Fuck this guy.
Yeah.
I actually shared an Instagram story earlier today, and that David mentioned me. It was just like, spoilers for today's recording, and it says, people with mommy issues are like, she ruined my development in many ways, but I recognize her efforts and personal traumas, and while they are no excuse, I do wish healing for her. Then people with daddy issues are just like, I'll kill the fucker with my bare hands. Respect. And I'm like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at too. Yeah. Like, I don't want to kill the guy, but like, I will just say, suffice to say, I do not have a good relationship with my father, and I feel little sympathy for him after the things that he has done in the 20 years since he ruined my mother's life.
Yeah.
And so I fully recognize I'm coming into this book loaded. And so when I'm talking about like, I really like this part, I really like this part, I do genuinely really like those things because I'm disconnecting my own personal history to that. But I do think that there are moments where Jay is talking about his dad near the end, and I'm just like, as someone who had a difficult relationship with his father, I would have trouble owning some of the things that Mitt did and saying, actually, he was just doing his best.
Interesting. Yeah, I have a bit of a different relationship with the book than you do, because my mom was my fucking problem, and I do not wish healing on her. I wish that she would finally die and be dead so that I don't have the ghost of the person who raised me, just constantly texting fucking abuse.
Yeah.
And there, especially on the chapters on Sleep the boat earlier on, where like we see those flashbacks and he's like constantly aware of like what his dad's emotions are, like classic, this is not like necessarily the world's greatest father situation. I did read the scenario on Sleep a little differently than you did, but I also have my father is dead, and he was not abusive. He did his best for whatever given value of that. And so I think I have a different, like, the dead dad of it all is very different, I think, hitting for me.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's totally valid.
I see and want to like your read is totally great. I don't disagree with your read at all. I think what's great about literature is the ability to impact us based on where we are in our lives. And there is a strong possibility that you could read this book in 25 years and have the exact same take, a completely different take.
Oh, yeah.
Something that sort of blends the two together. And that's sort of the beauty of all art. And that's what's kind of incredible about it. Because I had two not great parents, and like, one is dead, and I am on the choo-choo merrily train. I am ready to call it quits on the other one, because I just don't. It would be better
again,
for the
I want to be
world.
clear. I called it quits on her a long time ago, waiting for her body to catch up. But unfortunately, alcohol and evil has really pickled her.
Listen, yeah, people who drink a lot tend to live longer, and that's just not fair.
No,
it's not.
Especially when you're like a fucking asshole.
Yeah,
because evil really fucking thrives. Unfortunately,
there is some pretty significant ACO or adult children of alcoholics in all of this with Jay's journey as well. He's got some of that. I was just because I do know Marily's history because we talked about it on pod. I was a little curious if the book was going to be a little triggering for you, Marily. Just because a parent with alcoholism is a unique situation for anyone who is an adult child of an alcoholic. I didn't find the book triggering, and I studied ACOAs, so I didn't feel like I couldn't recommend it to Marily. I just didn't know if that would have been your experience.
No, I really recognized the chapters where Jay is around his father drunk, and he's like very aware of what his dad is doing.
Yeah.
And like he even has a moment earlier on where when sleep first started going and the tour started going, where like the passengers would like take pictures with Mitt because he is a distinctive looking gentleman, and people are like, yeah, look at this boat captain, and Jay can see his father judging them, but the other people don't notice. Right. I thought that was very child of alcoholic coded, in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
totally.
But
yeah. Anyway, all of this is a bummer. Can we go back to the queerness of it for a little?
Yeah, of course. So I just want to again reiterate that I think there's a totally trans reading to this entire book. I think that this book could be read about an egg crack, and put aside all the like problems with Mitt, because they are there and that's really real, to take the term sleepers arise to someone who has been withholding their identity and has been literally sleeping. They have been so depressed about maybe confronting what that identity is, to then awaken at the end of the book. That did cause me to sob in the final chapter. I thought that was a big hit for me here at the end.
Oh, David.
I love that, David.
Yeah. I just, like, the book is about Jay, and like what he experiences and goes through is so much. And so like the idea that like this, whatever it is that like when Jay recovers from the, again, undoubtedly years of physical therapy that he's going to go through, like the idea that he's going to be a different person that he is now, in whatever shape that may be, I think is completely a perfectly cromulent like trans narrative.
Yeah. And
I just like the thing that I kept thinking about when imagining this as a trans narrative was the incredible film I Saw the TV Glow.
Mm-hmm,
and I just there is still time. You can awaken rebirth from a whale if that's what it takes.
Yeah. I don't recommend it, so we are against...
Yeah, do not. It seems like it's really bad, but
seems
probably better than screaming and crying and like never acknowledging that part of yourself.
And better than diving into a cave, as we have also established. Yes, no whales in caves, but also no exit. So don't swim into whales, don't swim into caves. This has been your fair-coded PSA. Shooting star, the more you know.
Well, thank you all so much for listening to this episode. What a time we have all had. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Then you don't need to give us a full readout of your technical gear. Just follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky at VeerCodedPod.
This podcast is a proud part of the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective. If you'd like to listen to more queer media podcasts, check out the full roster of Glitterjaw shows at glitterjaw.com. And join us next time when we wrap up being lost at Sea-tember by boarding another derelict vessel, but this time in the Great Star Ocean. We're going to go to space. That's right. It's time for a blood orgy as we discuss the 1997 film Event Horizon. But for now, we will simply say goodbye.
Bye. To Jay, it is worth the whisk. The whisk.
That Great British Baking's got in your head, Tyler.
I watched the new season last night. I watched the first episode, and I'm already like, Paul Hollywood, biscuits, a bread week, cake week. Oh yes, you must make a tart.
Why have you become a Victorian orphan? Like, do you need to be sent to the seaside for your health?
Probably, yeah.
More important, Tyler, how does it feel to be living the end of episode audio in this very moment?
I'm gonna start over. I mean, I guess technically, if you want to look at the anthropological history of the French language, then it is kind of like, yeah.
Mon Dieu, what happened?
You can't do 2 end of audio bits, Tyler. Come on now.
You do as many as you want. It could just be
in
all,
one section.
All end of audio bit.
Oh no, David, cut this out.